Started recording, so you can,
All right.
yeah.
So, good evening and welcome everybody to the final session of our miasms. And today we're dealing with the final and probably the most deep acting of the three chronic miasms, that is syphilis. And let us compare it with the other miasms once we are done with today's description. And it's a very interesting miasm because of the depth and the intensity with which it presents itself in the body. Without any further delay, let us hand over the mic to Sujata, and she's got a very good set of slides and she's going to present it to us. After that, stay with us. If there are any issues with the connectivity or with the quality of the sound, please do bear with us. We will clear whatever questions, whatever doubts, whatever slides that need to be repeated, and stay with us for the question and answer session. So, Sujata, you can take over.
Okay, ma'am. A very good evening to everyone. So, like you all know, in previous sessions, we already discussed about miasms as general and then SORA, psychosis. So, today we'll discuss about syphilis. So, syphilis is a venereal chronic miasm. So, venereal means the disease is transmitted sexually. So, sexually transmitted diseases. So it's a venereal chronic miasm. Is Treponema pallidum, and in pictures, the first picture is the microscopic view of that bacteria which causes syphilis. So this miasmatic state, syphilitic state, develops when the primary manifestations of the disease like canker and bubo are suppressed by some local treatments. So in first picture, that is canker, and it is in hand, but actually first it appears in the genitals where the infection is first infected, and then bubo. And so canker is a type of genital ulcer, and bubo is an enlarged lymph node that is tender and painful. So it usually occurs in the groin as shown in the picture, and in armpit as well. And Hahnemann called syphilis as canker disease. So now the development of syphilis. It has also the three stages like the mode of infection, internal development, external manifestations, primary manifestations, and secondary manifestations. So first, the mode of infection. To effect the infection, it requires a certain amount of friction in the most tender parts of the body, that is the sexual organs, which are most rich in nerves and covered with thinnest cuticle. So the mode of infection is impure coition. Then the internal development. As soon as the syphilitic miasm touches the spot infected, it is no more local. The whole body has already received its presence immediately in a dynamic manner. So all wiping and washing off of the spots affected, however speedy and however and whatever fluid, it is a particular time, it already affected the entire body in a dynamic manner. So then after the internal development, so it then develops gradually, internally develops. So after the internal development is completed fully, the canker appears in the place first affected. So appearance of venereal canker usually between the 7th and 14th day. So during this time, the miasm is developing internally, rarely sooner or later. So mostly it first appears in the genitals, the spot infected with the miasma. So then the external manifestations. Primary manifestations. The primary manifestation is the venereal canker. At first, they appear as a little pustule, which changes in an impure ulcer with raised borders and a type of stinging type of pain. So that is the primary manifestation. So if this venereal canker, or if this canker is not cured, it remains standing on that same place during the man's lifetime and only increasing with the years. The secondary symptoms cannot break out as long as this venereal canker exists in that place, externally present in that place. Till then, the secondary symptoms cannot break out. Then the secondary manifestations. So when that venereal canker is disrupted by means of choroiding, cauterizing, or stances, nature compels the organism to replace the destroyed canker by a more painful substitute, the bubo. Like we saw in the first slide, the picture, which hastens the suppuration. Then if we drive out that bubo through the injurious treatment of allopathy, then nature compelled itself to develop the internal malady through more troublesome secondary elements. And that secondary manifestations, that secondary symptoms of syphilis occur very slowly, because first it will appear as a canker, then after the injurious treatment it will appear as a bubo, and after the treatment of that bubo in an injurious way, the secondary manifestations are breakout. So now we'll discuss about some characteristic symptoms of syphilis. So here I will mention some important characteristic symptoms, not all the symptoms, because all are already given in a systematic manner in all books. So I will just mention the most characteristic symptoms. So first, the location or the type of change that happened in syphilitic miasm. There is destruction and ulceration. So that is the most important symptom, most important thing about syphilis, that you will find in everywhere or in every tissue there is some kind of destruction and ulceration. And also affections of bone, blood vessels, mucocutaneous part, and nervous system. And there is anatomical discontinuity is well marked in syphilitic miasm. So here the causation is also the suppression of abnormal discharges, and also the suppression of canker and bubo, etc. So that is the main cause for the breaking out of syphilitic miasm. So now the symptoms. So first we'll discuss about mental symptoms. So there is more structural changes happened in syphilitic miasm. So the emotional sphere in purely syphilitic patients is not seriously affected. So that's why in this miasm we will see that less subjective symptoms are there and more structural changes happen. So some mental symptoms are: the patient is dull, stupid, idiot, and imbecile. So all four have the similar kind of meaning. So the patient is dull, stupid, and idiot. Imbecile is also a stupid type of person. Then he is stubborn, sullen, and obstinate. So sullen means a bad tempered. He has a bad temper and just not want to talk to anybody. So stubborn, sullen, obstinate. Obstinate means he will refuse to change his opinion. So he is stubborn and does not like to talk to anybody, has a bad temper and does not change his opinion. So that type of person are syphilitic persons. And they are also depressed, but keep their troubles to themselves and sulk over them. They are the closed mouth persons. They does not want to worry his friends with his troubles much. So that's why they keep their troubles, their problems to themselves and think about it over and over again. But they do not express that to anybody because they don't want to trouble anybody. So they are the closed mouth persons. Salient type and impulsive. So salient means the person's identity that comes into play in a specific situation, like impulsive type. So salient also has a similar meaning to impulsive. They are the impulsive persons. They react too easily, and in that impulse, in that reaction, they can do anything. So they are depressed. So they desire to escape that thing, to get away from self. This drives them to just goes out and commit suicide. So that type of impulsive person they are. Something happens and they just want to escape, just want to get away from self, and just goes out and commits suicide. So they are impulsive patients, and that is the meaning of salient. They are suspicious, mistrustful, and there is self-condemnation also there. They will blame themselves that they can do this thing, or they failed in some plan and all. So they will self-condemnation. Then there is fixed mood and ideas which no amount of reasoning will move. So like we discussed that they are the stubborn, they are obstinate kind of person. So they have that fixed moves, fixed ideas, which they will not change his opinion. They will not change his ideas, no matter how amount of reasoning, how we tell them that no, this is the thing, but they think that the idea they have, that is the true, and they will not change his ideas or moods or his opinion. Incapacity for understanding, inattentive, and difficulty in comprehension. So like if we read a line, he cannot understand its meaning, so he has to read that particular line over and over again. So there is incapacity for understanding, and his thoughts and ideas are just vanishes away, and he has not that mental ability to bring them back. So there is incapacity of understanding and read that line over and over again, because he just can't understand what that means, and there is thoughts and ideas are vanishes away. And there is a destructive kind of mentality. Obviously, in issues there is destruction, alteration are happening. So the mentality also be the destructive kind of mentality. And their anger, like we discussed, that they have bad temper. So their anger leads to violence. They desire to kill. They are the cold-blooded persons. Like they can kill anybody or even himself without any disturbance, without any second thought. So they are the impulsive persons. They are the destructive kind of mentality. And they also have forgetful kind of thing, that they cannot recall the past event. Like in psychosis, we discussed that they can recall the past events, but they cannot recall the recent events. But here, syphilitic patients cannot recall the past events, and there is an inability to explain symptoms to the physician as well. So all these mental troubles relieved by breaking out of an ulcer, the abnormal discharges as well, like the leukorrhea, gonorrheal discharges, and are aggravated by perspiration and at night. So most of the symptoms of syphilis are aggravated at night. Then headache. So headache almost always in the back of the head or on one side, and there is a dull, heavy, and lancinating type of headache. So lancinating type of pain means the pain like that caused due to some sharp instrument. So that is the lancinating type of pain. So they will have that kind of headache. And there is a band-like sensation around the head, and child bore his head into the pillow or roll the head side to side. And all his headache are and his headache are worse at night, and due to exhaustion, either mental or physical. and better by morning and throughout the day. Then hair is moist, gluey, oily and greasy and falls out in bunches and hair matted together. And hair also has an offensive odor. So because the hair is moist, gluey, oily and greasy, so they will matted together like shown in the picture. And there is also falling of hair from eyelashes and eyebrows. So broken, imperfect eyelashes. There is thick, moist, crushed on the scalp as well. So the diseases of eyes are like malformation of eyeballs, and then they have a, so here in eyes also they have ulcerations and inflammations and malformation of eyeballs. And the most characteristic symptom of syphilis is there is dread of artificial light. So all the symptoms are aggravated by that artificial light. So there is a dread of artificial light in syphilis. There is loss of smell, also snuffles in children. There is ulceration of nose. So like the destruction and ulceration are all in all the tissues. So there is also ulceration of nose and bones of nose are destroyed. And a gray, greasy appearance of the face, like shown in the first picture. And the face of infant looks grayish, ashy, and the old, muted, just looks like an old man. And there is also the appearance of marasmus, because the syphilis destroys not only the tissues, but also it destroys the power of the body to assimilate the proper materials from food. So it will destroy the assimilation of body. So that's why there is a characteristic appearance of marasmus present in syphilitic patients. Deformed teeth that will decay easily, and tongue has an imprint of tick, like shown in the second picture. That is, the tongue has imprint of tick. Then there is a kind of metallic taste in mouth, metallic coppery kind of taste in mouth, and the saliva is ropey and cottony. And there is desire for cold food and cold drinks. So they want cold food and cold drinks, everything cold. And there is also aversion to meat, because meat will aggravate the conditions. And there is also a hereditary alcoholism is also present. And sudden diarrhea at night, the patient is driven out of bed. And also sometimes diarrhea is accompanied with profuse warm and cold perspiration and high debility and exhausting type of feeling. So that's made the patient to driven out of the bed. So at night, sudden diarrhea at night. So all the symptoms of syphilis are most prominent and mostly aggravated during night. Cough with one or two distinct barks like a dog. And also there is thread-like mucus. Like we discussed that ropey and cottony type of saliva. So the mucus also like the thread-like mucus shown in the picture. So the cough is like one or two distinct barks like a dog, and the mucus is the thread-like. So like we discussed in SORA, that psoric patients' heart conditions are not that much serious, but they will afraid, they will become anxious, they will think that they will die, and want constant attention from physician. They will the person they take his pulses and all. But the psychotic and syphilitic patients' heart complaints are much more dangerous than the psoric patients. But here there is no subjective type of symptoms, like there is no anxiousness or afraid like present in the psora. So here the condition is much more serious, but the patient is not having that type of anxiousness, that type of subjective symptoms. So silent asymptomatic heart complaints, and they are much more dangerous than the psora, so that the patient suddenly dies without any warning. Then painful and troublesome erections without sexual desire, and vaginal discharges can be drawn into long threads. So here also the discharges can be drawn into long thread, like in cough there is also the thread like vapors. So here also vaginal discharges are also like threads, and there is recurrent abortions present as well. Then stitching, shooting, lancerating type of pain in periosteum of lung bones. So the lancerating, like we discussed, that the pain that is caused due to some headache and also present in here in extremities as well, in the periosteum of lung bones. And that pain are worse at night. So here also the aggravation at night, and in change of weather, and basically and mostly in cold and damp atmosphere. And nails are thin as paper. They can bend easily, like shown in the picture, first picture. The nails are that much thin, like as a paper, so that it will bend easily, and are sometimes spoon shaped. Like the natural convexity is reversed, like shown in the second picture, are sometimes spoon shaped nails. So obviously the nails are thin as paper, so they will bend easily. And in skin, there is eruptions at the corners of the joint in circular forms, like shown in the first picture. And there is also copper colored spots with lace itching, like we discussed in taste. There is a metallic or coppery type of taste. So here in skin as well, there is copper colored spots with lace itching is present, and there is dry gangrene, because a syphilis is a miasm of destruction and ulceration. So here also the dry type of gangrene is present. So the general aggravation of syphilitic miasm is at night. So that is the most important thing. So all the symptoms are aggravated at night. Warmth, sweat, rest, and artificial light. So most important is all the symptoms of syphilitic miasm aggravated at night and at artificial light, and warmth, sweat, rest, and due to some natural discharges like the sweat, urine, stool, etc. But the general amelioration of syphilis is during the daytime. Throughout the day, patient is well. So amelioration is throughout the day or daytime, and motion and amelioration due to abnormal discharges like the leukorrhea, gonorrhea, otorrhea, etc. All type of abnormal discharges ameliorates the complaints, mostly the mental complaints. So now we'll discuss about the treatment of syphilis. We all know that that is the antisyphilitic treatment. So in homeopathy, we choose medicine based on symptom similarity. So like that, the medicines which have characteristic symptoms of syphilis as their characteristic symptoms are called the antisyphilitic remedies. So some antisyphilitic remedies are aurum metallicum, argentum metallicum, plumbum metallicum, mercurius, crocus sativus, and syphilinum. So now we'll discuss about the treatment. So if syphilis, the first condition is that if syphilis is alone and it is not complicated with developed psora or psychosis. So the syphilis is all alone, not complicated with SORA or psychosis. So the first condition will be when the canker or bubo, that is the primary manifestation of syphilis, is already present. It's still present in the skin. It's still present as an external manifestation. Then one little dose of base dynamized molecular remedy can cure, and this will remove the cancer within 14 days. So the indication of cure in syphilis, in almost all the conditions, the indication of cure of syphilis is internally applied medicine, that is antisyphilitic medicine, cures the canker as well as restores the normal color of that skin, that is the affected part, the normal color of the skin in the affected parts. That is the indication of cure. So internally applied medicine in affected parts. That is the. So the second condition is that when the canker or bubo is removed by violent local applications. So here the syphilis is present inside the body, but the canker and bubo is removed by violent local applications. So in that case, also the dose of morphial medicine administered internally. But here the indication of cure is, so when that canker or bubo is removed by violent local application, it always leaves, it always remains a discolored reddish red or blue type of scar in that affected part. So when we administer medicine, so if it restore the normal healthy color and texture of that skin, then only we can say that this condition is cured. So always there is restoration of the normal healthy color and texture of the skin of that affected part. So now the second situation is that when the syphilis is complicated with SORA, that is called as marked sporoceous syphilis or pseudosyphilis. So basically, when syphilis and SORA combine, it is called marked sporoceous syphilis, or in England it is called as pseudosyphilis, a monster of double disease. So this complication can happen in already suffering from a chronic disease during the time of infection of syphilis. So in body there is already a chronic disease present. And the second way is that when the general health is weakened by strong violent allopathic treatment for a long period of time. So the patient is already taking some kind of violent strong allopathic treatment for a long period of time, then his general health will weaken. So it will make the latent SORA to awaken and break out. So because SORA can only be complicated with the venereal disease in psychosis or syphilis when it has developed. So, but when it is in latent state, it cannot complicate with syphilis. So it have to arise from that latent state. So in two ways it can arise. Either there is already a chronic disease present, or the patient is taking allopathic treatment or violent medicines for long period of time. So here the treatment will be all external hurtful influences removed. Then we have to advise a well-nourished diet. Then on the basis of recent symptoms, first we have to give the antisoric remedy, because we have to make that developed SORA to return to its latent form, and then we can apply the antisyphilitic treatment, antisyphilitic remedy by the best morphological preparation should be given. In invertebrate and difficult cases, at first another one or more antisoric remedies that have not yet been used, and based on the present soric symptoms, we can apply one or more antisoric remedies which is not yet been used, and it always have to based on the present totality of soric symptoms, and then we can apply the same best molecular remedy, but in different potency should be given. And the next situation is that when syphilis is complicated with developed both SORA and psychosis. So first we have to give the antipsychotic treatment because we have to make the SORA return to its latent form, and then either antisyphilitic or antipsychotic based on the predominant symptoms of that present totality. What is the predominant symptoms? Either antisyphilitic or antipsychotic. We have to give the remedy according to that. Then now the last one should be treated by the proper anti-miasmatic medicine. Means if we first give the antisyphilitic, then we'll now give the antipsychotic or vice versa. And then the remaining symptoms of soric symptoms, remaining symptoms of SORA can be cured by anti-soric treatment. So in all these conditions, the indication of cure is that the normal skin color and the texture of that affected part is restored. That is the only indication of cure of syphilitic miasm. So that is it. I hope that this will be helpful for you all. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Sujata. Very detailed presentation with a lot of explanation, and especially the last few slides where we've discussed the treatment. Nobody ever thinks so much in the clinic when they have to deal with a patient, thinking of antisodic, antipsychotic, antisyphilitic. But you've put in a lot of effort in that, and it's really showing. So that's syphilis for all of us, and very interesting and very deep reaching miasm. If we have to understand this miasm in a nutshell, we must know that it had its origin in the STD, that is syphilis itself, caused by the bacteria Treponema pallidum. And obviously it gets transmitted through sexual contact, impure sexual contact. All of us should understand that miasms were introduced and were created as a theory at a time when modern medicine hadn't even, come forth with its research and with its answers. So we're talking about a time before Robert Koch, we're talking about before Louis Pasteur, we're talking about before Alexander Fleming. So we had no clue what bacteria were, we had no clue what a virus was, what a microscope was. So Hahnemann was able to come up with a theory like this at a time when they had no idea what a microorganism itself was. So he knew that it's today that we know that syphilis is caused by treponema, but otherwise in those days they just knew that it was an impure coition, and that spread from one person to the other. And if it's not treated properly, in those days they used a lot of topical treatment and a lot of harsh and very intense treatment like cauterizing, and they thought that would get rid of it. Then what happens is, if it's not treated properly or if it's suppressed, it goes deeper into the body and it will affect the organism on a more dynamic plane. And that is the first generation of syphilis. So it has many phases, that is the primary, secondary, the latent, tertiary. So it starts with the chancre and then it goes to the bubo to the other parts of the body, the skin, the bones, the mucous membranes. It starts affecting the blood. And it becomes such a bad disease that the patient is suffering from head to toe, not just their sexual organs. And from there, it gets passed on from an infected mother to an unborn child. So the child is born as a second generation of syphilis, as a syphilis sufferer, and develops symptoms even at birth and is stuck with those disorders right through life. So that is how syphilis manifests, that is how it infiltrates, that is how it infests in the body and form the miasm. And we must understand that it's not necessary today that a person has to have syphilis, the disease itself, because we were introduced to very good contraceptives, very good birth control, which prevented the transmission of sexually transmitted diseases. So syphilis, the disease itself, has been on the decline, but the miasm itself has spread rapidly, and its theme is destruction and degeneration, irreversible structural disorders, and and whatever diseases come under that classification are considered to belong to the syphilitic miasm. So today we don't have to worry about syphilis, the disease itself. We have to worry about syphilis, the miasm. And that is what we are studying today. And that is what we must understand. And after that, the second generation is where the miasmatic development occurs. So there is a lot of destruction. There is a lot of suppression. So if you don't treat the disease properly, it gets suppressed. It goes deeper. It doesn't show itself on the surface or on the skin level. And it goes deeper and starts affecting deeper organs. Syphilis, unlike psychosis, is also known to affect bones. Psychosis affects only soft tissue. That's why you see tumors, you see cysts, you see vesicles, you see fibroids. Whereas syphilis goes deeper, affects the bones, affects harder organs, affects the deeper organs, and it forms even something as worrisome or as irreversible as a cancer. So now your question should be, what is the difference between a psychosis and a syphilis? Both, even psychosis is typical in tumors. Psychosis is characterized by tumors, by overgrowths. So overgrowths may not necessarily be malignant, whereas in syphilis, the cancer is malignant. It has metastasized, it has spread to other organs, it has caused destruction of the organ. You have to cut the organ out and get rid of it, like if it's a liver or if it's part of the intestine. These things don't happen in psychosis. Psychosis is only characterized by the overgrowth, which can be contained. So syphilis is a lot deeper and a lot more progressive than psychosis. What comes after that is the theme of destruction. So you see destruction in all forms. That is the theme of syphilis. Destruction doesn't mean that the person has a destructive nature. Everything in their body has destruction in its core. So a child born with a syphilitic miasm, which itself is rare, and normally a person is not born with psychosis or syphilis, but if they are, that means they will have developmental disorders, they will have irreversible structural changes, things like congenital disorders like cleft lip, cleft palate, or rheumatic heart disease, or the open, what is that, the hole in the heart, diseases like that. Nobody is born like that. Normally people are born only with psoriatic miasm, if at all they're born with any miasm, and that will progress later in life under certain conditions, and that will cause the remaining two miasms to flare up. But somebody born with this has a deep syphilitic background, and there will be destruction. There will be the theme recurring in their life, unfortunately. And if it's treated well, it can be kept under control, and it can be taken care of. It can be prevented from spreading further. And destruction occurs in all phases, in all forms: mental, physical, dynamic plane, on the organ level, on the internal level, on the external level, even to the extent where the hair is also not growing properly. It's not healthy. It's not assimilating properly. It's not taking up the nutrients. It is only showing destruction. It is not showing construction. So that is the problem with syphilis. There is a lot of suppression because somewhere in the past, maybe the generation before or the generation before them, they must have actually had syphilis, the disease itself. It wouldn't have been treated properly. There would have been very, very badly suppressed treatment, causing it to flare up 2 generations later. And this suppression can cause even perversions, which is why you notice that the patient feels better with abnormal discharges. In SORA, they feel better with normal discharges, like, for example, perspiration, urination, salivation, lacrimation. But this does not work well for syphilis. Syphilis feels better with a lot of catarrh. It feels better with excessive bleeding, feels better with some other pus or some other discharge, which is not normal. They feel better when that comes out because there is a lot of suppression. There is a lot of internalization. So when that toxic waste, which is there inside the body, comes out, then they feel better because that's coming out of the body. It's definitely giving them the relief. And something else, there is something where they say there is, okay, I think I'll bring this point up in the questions that I will ask you all. Is there anything that you people would like to ask? Because, if you ask a couple of questions, then I can describe that, that aspect of syphilis. Anybody, any questions, any doubts? Then I'll move on to the next explanation. We'll compare a few of the miasms and see a few aspects of the miasms and see. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll start asking you all questions. Shall I do that? Mercurial medicine means. So one of the, okay, very good. Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. So one of the, or the most prominent remedy, which is an anti-syphilitic, is mercurius. And that is known, most of its symptoms, most of the provings match those of the syphilitic miasm. And therefore it works very well as an anti-syphilitic remedy. So it's called a mercurial medicine. Any of the mercury medicines, Mercor, Sol, which book is used for general aspect of the miasm? Are you talking about the general explanation to all these? Then you can please refer to Herbert Roberts. He writes very well and it's very interesting. It's very easy to understand. Okay. Next question from Kanchal is, from examination point of view, how to recognize any medicine, whether it is SORA, syphilis or psychosis? Good question. So see, one, it has been listed very well in Herbert Roberts under all the three different miasms, a list of remedies that match each miasm. Second thing is, there is a, sorry, Dharmik, what is the question? Ma'am, one symptom through decided this is syphilis or any miasm. I'm sorry, what does that mean? Can you just tell me a little more in detail what your question means? In the meantime, I'll just answer this question. So examination point of view, how do you recognize the medicine? See, examination point of view, you just have to learn the names, get a list of names and learn it. It's there in Herbert Roberts. It's from the clinical aspect that you should know. See, what happens is, if you remember, during SORA, I explained the von Kruogel's classification, oxygenoid, hydrogenoid, carbonitrogenoid. Now understand that their action on the body is based on the element that they represent. So to match syphilis with the von Kruogel's classification, it is nothing but the oxygenoid constitution. Oxygenoid means abnormal or excessive oxidation of the cells, and excessive oxidation is nothing but the destruction of these cells. Once they're oxidized, then they're of no use. The ionic exchange has gone past a certain point where the cell cannot function properly. It exists, but it is of no use. It's almost like it's been destroyed. So oxygenoid constitution is syphilis. So in cancer, you see that there is excessive oxidation of the cells. So if you see, even in nature, certain oxidations are not healthy. They're not productive. They are destructive. For example, iron gets oxidized easily, which is why we get rust. That is ferrous or ferric oxide. So what happens is, this form of oxidation is not healthy. It's not receiving oxygen to produce energy. It is oxidation. It's losing the hydrogen and it is receiving oxygen. So ferrum, that is iron. Then another element is Kali, the Kali group, like Kali iode, Kali bike. So if you notice their action or their reactions with certain elements, then when oxidation takes place easily, then these elements are considered the antisyphilitic. It's a far short. You can go and read von Kruogel's classification. He's given a very good explanation on remedies that correspond to this. So if you notice, these elements, they match or they get oxidized and they undergo oxidation, which is not healthy. So those elements or those remedies come under antisyphilitic remedies. So that's why we have mercury, you have ferrum, you have Kali group. All these very well, they match the syphilitic and antisyphilitic properties. Okay, what else? Yeah, then any other questions? How can watch the previous webinar on miasm, SORA and psychosis? Yes, we are uploading all of them. It's just that we are trying to set up a separate website where we can put all these up. So please bear with us. All of them have been recorded and they will all be available to you very, very soon. Just be patient with us. Our team of doctors is also busy with their practice, with their work during the day. So just give us some time, we'll upload everything. When will miasms convert from psychotic or SORA to syphilis? And how will we perceive that the patient have both shades of psychosis as well as syphilis? So you're talking about a compound miasm. So a compound miasm, very good. So everybody is born a soric. SORA is the root or the core of everybody's health, every body. because because it is to do with the elements that are present in the body, the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, all the micro elements that are present. So any deficiency or any disturbance in that, any functional disorder is a SORA. After a while, if you notice that the person undergoes certain exposures, certain changes, certain experiences in their life, where there might be certain incoordination, there might be certain, what do you call, certain excesses. So that can be psychosis, that prolonged exposure, overexposure, that can lead to psychosis. So there will be excess of discharges, excess of overgrowth, their own response. They start reacting exuberantly or, outwardly to a lot of stimuli in their external environment. Then over a period of time, states where they can be exposed for a long time to an adverse condition which makes them depressed. There is grief, there is anger, there is vexation, disappointment, and prolonged, not just one time. It's not just one time. So over a long period of time, for example, if the wife is not happy with her husband, if she's not happy with her family, or if say, for example, the man is undergoing a lot of stress at work and he has no choice, but he has to just keep his mouth shut and continue with the work. Then over a long period of time, suppression has occurred, and that has led him to transition to the next miasm, that is syphilis. So SORA, then psychosis, and then syphilis. Syphilis is the final one where there is destruction, where there is irreversible changes, where there is degeneration, where you can't go back to your old state. So when there are two miasms, you will notice that there will be characteristics of both. For example, SORA feels aggravated from they say from sunrise to sunset, whereas syphilis will feel aggravated from sunset to sunrise, through the night. So you'll find that the patient can undergo both, and the symptoms can match both the miasms. So what you do is you try to give the anti-soric first, because usually SORA can be treated faster and SORA can be treated more easily. And after that, you try to move on to the antisyphilitic. That's how you progress in the treatment. It's very well explained in Herbert Roberts, and Sujata also put forth a couple of slides where she said take care of the soric aspect of the individual first. Next question is SORA the cause of further two miasms? SORA is not the cause of any further miasm. SORA is present in everybody. I'll come to that, Shivani. So SORA is not the cause of any miasm. It's just that the body, under certain conditions, under certain exposures over a period of time, can transition or can progress to the next two miasms. It's not SORA that's causing them to do. Everybody undergoes functional disturbance sometime in their life, and that is nothing but SORA. What is tubercular miasm? Can anyone answer that before I give the answer? At least answer what it is a combination of. It's a combination. It's a compound miasm. It's a combination of two miasms. SORA and syphilitic. Very good. Yes, excellent. So it's a combination of SORA and syphilis. So you will find in tubercular miasm, a person is born with both SORA as well as syphilis. And this is it's not exactly pseudo SORA. It does have SORA in it, but then it is also mixed with syphilis, and it is passed on from the previous generation. So you find tubercular miasm pretty prominent in children because they have both present in them, and therefore they'll have both SORA as well as syphilitic characteristics in them. Here, I'll just tell you where it is present. The write-up is pretty good. Herbert Roberts has explained a little bit about tubercular miasm. Let me just share that with you. Give me a second. He's easily one of the best authors when it comes to miasm because he's explained it so well. And he has given very simple explanation in very simple language. If you can read it like you're reading a story and then make your own notes from it, then there's nothing like that. So if you notice in tubercular miasm, there is a combination of soric symptoms, soric manifestations, as well as syphilitic manifestations. Hi, Kanchan Khandelwal. We have already covered chronic diseases. I think you might be able to find that lecture. We've already done a class on that. So tuberculomyasm is a compound miasm because it contains both SORA as well as syphilis, and it will have a lot of functional disturbances. You'll find the child having the regular, the growth disorders, teething troubles, and at the same time, you'll find certain structural and um, certain irreversible changes also occurring, and that can be treated well with the tubercular remedy itself, that is tuberculinum. Yes. Who is most at risk for syphilis? Mr. Om Harihar, do you mean syphilis, the disease, the infection, or do you mean syphilis, the miasm itself? Please, if you can answer that. Dr. Seema, what do you mean by PPT not looking map, SORA plus psychosis also? SORA plus psychosis doesn't have a specific name. It can occur, but it doesn't have a specific name like a tuberculomyasm. You must remember that Hahnemann came up with these classifications based on the diseases that were prevalent in those days, the infections. He didn't know that tuberculosis was caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So he said it is a combination of two miasms, that is the SORA and the syphilitic. No, SORA plus psychosis is not tubercular. Tuberculomyasm is SORA plus syphilis because it has manifestations of SORA and syphilis. Differentiate syphilitic disease and syphilitic miasm. It's very simple. Syphilitic disease is the bacterial infection caused by Treponema pallidum, the bacteria. It is transmitted from one person to the other by impure coition, that is by having unprotected sexual contact, and it passes from the infected person's genitals to the receiver's genitals. Syphilitic miasm is the next generation. It is passed on. It is a deep acting change in the body where it involves all the organs, even the physical and mental plane. The person does not have to suffer the syphilis disease itself, but it has been passed on from generation to generation. For example, if today you have a patient, a 30-year-old patient having syphilitic miasms manifestations, then probably his grandfather or great-grandfather had syphilis, the disease itself. And because it was not treated properly, it was not cured completely, it was passed on to that person's offspring, and then from that person passed on to their children to their children. And it is passed on. It's a genetic tendency that has been passed on. Okay, Dr. Seema. Sujata, if you're available, can you just put on the last couple of slides, 47, 48, if you don't mind? Are you there? Yeah. Okay, what's the next question? Let me see. Okay, hold on. Let me just check what the next question is. So syphilitic disease and syphilitic miasm are different. Syphilitic disease is just the infectious disease. Syphilitic miasm is the deep-seated cause, deep-seated destructive and degenerative tendency the body has with all these manifestations. Next question, in case of newborn like certain diseases, which is of purely syphilitic origin like ophthalmia neonatum of syphilitic cause. Sorry, I lost the question. Just hold on. Will the newborn directly have syphilitic miasm at birth? Yes, it will have. See, the reason they have the syphilitic tendency inside their body is why they are prone to getting these diseases. All children who are born do not develop ophthalmia neonatum, even though they're exposed to the same environment. So out of the same environment that these children are exposed, maybe 2 out of 10 might develop that disease. Maybe the remaining 8 will just overcome it and they'll move on and stay healthy. So that means there has been some latent syphilitic tendency, and that has been very strong in them. It has been passed on from mother to child. Yeah, so coming to this slide, Dr. Seema, you can have a look and see the treatment. There is not much mentioned on tuberculomyasm. It's just that you have to go and read it in Herbert Roberts. All I was saying that she mentioned a little bit about the compound miasms. If the baby is born with syphilitic miasm, do we consider soric miasm? Yes, absolutely. Soric will always be there. It's never that, you only have syphilis and you won't have sora. Depending on what they are suffering, you have to select your remedy. If it's some small functional disturbance, you can definitely give them a soric remedy. As she said in this, always start with the soric remedy and then move on to the next miasm. So treat the soric condition first, the functional disturbance, because that is the easiest to get rid of. Once you have dealt with that, move on to the next miasm. Ma'am, are all these symptoms present in one person? They can be, why not? They can be sometimes they cannot be. But sometimes they can show combination of symptoms. Sometimes they can show an affinity only to one organ system. Can SORA be removed in babies? SORA cannot be removed. SORA is the root cause. SORA will always be present. But what you can do is you can treat the functional disturbance. If the baby has a cold or a cough or it has diarrhea, you can easily treat it and get rid of those symptoms. SORA can be latent for a very long time. That is, latent means it's literally asleep. It's staying dormant inside without showing any symptoms. If there are any adverse conditions, any modalities that flare up, then that time you can have the SORA flare up. Okay. Now let me come to a few questions. I want to ask you all some questions and see if you can answer. Okay. It's not a viva. Let's have some fun. Let's see if we can do some analysis of our own. So Sujata told that the syphilitic patient feels very aggravated in artificial light. They don't feel comfortable working in artificial light. From here onwards, whatever I say is all analysis. There is no right or wrong, and there is no one answer. So see if you can answer this. Why would somebody who's a syphilitic, who belongs to a syphilitic miasm, feel aggravated in an artificial light? Why is that? That's very odd, don't you think? It's a very unusual and a very, unexpected symptom, unexpected modality. It seems very odd. Perversion of senses. So why is that perversion happening? You're right. But can you go a little deeper, go one step before that and say why that perversion is occurring? Just remember, whatever questions I ask on syphilis, your theme should always be destruction and should be degeneration. Using that, keeping that in mind, see if you can answer that. Anyone? So why would you feel disturbed in artificial light? Artificial light is usually strong. It is bright. It's like a glare that disturbs you. If you think of any of these spotlights. Yeah, I'll come to that, Himanshu. Let me finish with this one question. So what happens is, in a deeper level, the rods and please repeat the question. I'm asking why would a syphilitic patient feel aggravated in artificial light? That is one of the modalities that Sujata mentioned in one of her slides. So why this odd occurrence? Why such an odd modality? It's very unexpected. Okay, syphilis is aggravated at night, mostly encountered in artificial light. Excellent. So then they have no choice but to feel exposed to artificial light. Okay. So which part of your body has to receive that artificial light? Can anybody volunteer the answer? Eyes. Which part of the eyes? Some cells, no? Special cells are there in the eyes that help in light perception. Rods, very good. Yeah. Cones is for the color, so rods for the light. So imagine now in SORA, maybe the person is very tired or they're deficient in vitamin A, or for example, or they've not slept for a few days, or they're overworked. Because of that, artificial light, they're tired. In syphilis, most likely, there is some degeneration at the level of the rod cells in the eyes, which is why they're not able to tolerate the artificial light. Can you imagine? Again, this is analysis. This is not the exact pinpoint right answer, but just imagine the destruction and the degeneration is at that level, at that depth. And therefore, that's why the person cannot tolerate the artificial light. It's that deep. So any other modality that you come across like this, try to analyze and try to figure out to what level the person is suffering, so that you know that you can figure out the miasm based on that. If it's somebody who's not slept for 2 days because they had to study all night and they're finding the artificial light disturbing, that's not syphilis, that's a SORA. But suppose somebody who's having thick phlegm, sinusitis is all blocked with so much of phlegm that they're not able to look, their eyes are all heavy from that. That is a psychosis. But suppose a syphilitic would have difficulty in artificial light, it's probably because there is destruction on a deep level. Probably the rods are, there's degeneration in them. Maybe there's some destruction in those cells. I'm sorry, if you don't mind, can you spell the word correctly? I don't think you have, yeah. Kanchan, can you just spell the word again, if you don't mind? I don't think I understood what you've written. So try to analyze on that level, try to analyze on that plane. That way you can easily differentiate between the three miasms. Photophobia is a disease. You can have different forms of photophobia, isn't it? You can have photophobia, even conjunctivitis, bacterial conjunctivitis. Okay, that can just be purely psoric in nature. And you can have photophobia if you've gone to the doctor, had the dilatation, doctor has checked you. So that's not, see, photophobia is only a symptom, it's not a disease. It's just aversion to light, isn't it? So I'm giving you different reasons, different causes, different intensities, depths of photophobia, isn't it? So that's how you should differentiate your three miasms. Now, coming to the next one, aggravation at night. Now, why do you think a syphilitic feels aggravated at night? Here, the answer is a little more dynamic. It's a little bit more abstract. So see who can answer, who can come up with an explanation to this. Again, there is no right answer, wrong answer. You can answer whatever you feel like. The important thing is to make an analysis out of this. After this, I'll come up with one more comparison between two miasms. It's quite interesting if you can think along parallel levels for these miasms. Why is there aggravation at night? There's something about the mental symptoms of syphilis that Sujata had explained. If you can go back, Sujata, can you just go back to those slides? You can take your clues from that slide. Associated with rest. But a syphilitic is not really known to be that active, no, not necessary. Now go to the mental complaints. Little more behind. Something about stubborn, something about obstinate. So you see there is destruction at every level. When the child is developing teeth, those teeth are deformed. And when they have, see, the eyes are of different shapes, malformed. It never started in a good, healthy way. It started itself in a very haphazard way. Destruction. So what is a destruction? At night, is there any destruction? Sujata, go to the mental planes, no, please. The mental symptoms. Exhausted, okay. Okay, very good. Sujata, go to the mental complaints, no, please. Stubborn, obstinate, destructive, all those things that you had written down. Okay, while she's coming to those slides, I'll explain. Good, you people said destruction, exhausted, agglutinated eye. Agglutinated eye, yeah. I'm not talking about the eye right now. I'm talking about aggravation at night. Why are the complaints of syphilitic aggravated at night? So what happens is, syphilitic is he's usually not, well developed, or he's not blessed with the qualities that a psoric or a psychotic can have. He's deficient in many ways. He's destroyed in many ways. So either physically or mentally, sometimes the intellect is not developed, sometimes the milestones are delayed. So they always have to compensate for their lack of intellect or lack of qualities, lack of characteristics with something else so that they're able to survive in the world. So a child who is slow in writing, slow in understanding, she said that he's stupid, he's obstinate, he's not very intellectually developed, like a Baraita cub. So that child has to find shortcuts or has to find some other means rather than the normal means to achieve what the other normal children have, or other psoric children have, or the other psychotic children have. So because of that, they have developed a certain defense about themselves. They have to defend themselves because they're always lagging behind. And because of this prolonged feature, they'll end up becoming obstinate. They'll end up becoming stubborn. They only want their way. They think only what they do is right. And they will not listen to the other person. They'll say, no, I'm only right. Because they're scared to let their defenses down. They're scared to be seen as inferior as compared to the others. They have to. It's very competitive, isn't it? So they're always on their guard. And they're always, they're always on the watch that they have to not let their guard down. At night is a time to sleep, actually, traditionally, isn't it? That's what we all do. We all sleep at night. When you sleep, you let your guard down. And at that time, the syphilitic feels oppressed. At night, you cannot do a lot of activities. You cannot go out. You cannot do a lot of things that you can try to achieve in the daytime. So night makes you feel oppressed. And because they feel oppressed, they're not having the freedom to do what they feel like doing. That stubbornness or that obstinacy that they are known for is at its heights because they actually have no freedom to do what they want. So that's why most of the complaints are aggravated at night because they are not in their element at that time. During the day, they can try whatever they want. But at night, they have certain restrictions, certain constraints, which is preventing them from being themselves. And therefore, it reflects on the physical complaints also. That's just an explanation, okay? It's not, doesn't mean that there is a, there's a correct answer or a wrong answer. Yeah, Mr. Om Harihar, who's at risk for syphilis, miasm? There is no specific person, but somebody who has had, say, a history 2-3 generations ago, say their great grandfather or somebody before, who would have had the syphilis disease itself. If it had been badly treated and suppressed, they could have passed it on genetically to their great grandchild or some other descendant. Second thing is somebody who has that latent tendency will also be, who has been exposed for a prolonged period of time to adverse conditions like grief, disappointment, vexation, a lot of fears, then slowly that inherent miasm will start showing itself. So probably people who have undergone that kind of a change for a very long period of time, probably they're more susceptible to showing the syphilitic miasm. Yes, next question by you is, how long can an individual have syphilis before it is untreatable? So syphilis, the disease itself today is not as prevalent because people are now taking precautions. They're not having impure coition or impure sexual contact the way they used to in those days. There are better methods. There are better, now that we have antibiotics and we have better medicines and better contraceptives, syphilis itself has been controlled to a large extent. But normally syphilis is the symptoms itself don't show it for a long time, for a few weeks or for several days before you start seeing the eruption. So syphilis itself by nature is a very secretive and a very, what do you call it? It's a very secretive, very discreet disease. It's not as expressive as a psychosis. Psychosis, you would know the person by nature also shows exuberantly as an extrovert. They show everything, they express everything. And so the manifestations, you see it in the form of a tumor, you see it in the form of an external growth, you see it in the form of excessive discharges. Syphilis is not like that. Syphilis is very quiet, is very secretive, is very discreet, is a silent killer. That's why a syphilitic heart attack will not show itself. The patient will just die. You'll not even know that they're having a heart attack. So when it is that deep and that suppressed and that discreet and that secretive, then the destruction is happening inside without the knowledge of the patient. One day the patient will just wake up, go for a test and discover there is an ulcer in the intestine which they had no clue about. Whereas a psychosis, you know, because of the excessive discharges, excessive growths, excessive fluid collection in the body, you know there has been some disease right from the beginning. Okay, cancer, benign, malignant comes under which miasm? So cancer itself is a compound disease. It's not just confined to one miasm alone. But if it's a tumor, a benign tumor, which is fixed on one spot and which is probably in the early stages, we could say that yes, it is a psychotic miasm. But if you allow it to progress without proper treatment and it has the metastasis has occurred and it has gone deeper inside and affected tissues further inside and affected the bones, caused destruction where the organ has to be cut off and taken out, then it is moved to the syphilitic miasm. Sometimes it can even be a psychosyphilitic disease, miasm. Okay, next question. What if the individual affected with syphilitic condition after giving birth to the first child, that child won't be inherited with that miasm? They have passed on the gene. Whether that gene is expressed or not is dependent on the factors, environmental factors, and dependent on the prolonged exposure that the child has undergone. So you can't say that the child is syphilitic yet unless and until they have undergone their exposure over a period of time and starts showing those symptoms. But it will be there. If genetically it has been passed on, it is there somewhere inside, which is unfortunate. Okay, coming to the next question. We'll wind up soon. It's going to be 9:30. So let's wind up in another 10 minutes or so. This is again for you all to analyze and for you all to understand the differences between the miasms. Now that we've finished all three of them, you must now understand how to tell them apart. Okay, so a soric, you have forgetfulness as a symptom, as a rubric in your repertory. A soric can be forgetful, a syphilitic can be forgetful. How do you tell them apart? Anybody? Yeah, Himanshu, what do you mean exactly? During pregnancy, vital force, 1 year, 2. Okay, that's a very interesting thought. I think each one has their own vital force. You can't consider it as one when a person is pregnant. Okay, each one, see, we are very fixed about our law of individualization. So even vital force has to be separate. You can't say it is one. It has to be two different. Okay. Yeah. If you don't mind, can all of you just put it in the chat box, because I have to open two different boxes to read the questions. So is cowardice a syphilitic miasm? So now cowardice can be in anything. Cowardice is in lycopodium, cowardice is in hepar sulf, cowardice is in mercurius also. So cowardice as a symptom can be in any miasm. Lycopodium is purely soric, mercurius is purely syphilitic. So the cause behind the cowardice, the duration of the cowardice, and also the exposure, the experience, the life space that the patient has gone through is also very important. So just pinpointing one symptom, I cannot really answer that. You have to take the entire case. You have to understand the progress of the patient's life space for you to know the reason. Can stage 3 syphilis be cured? What is stage 3 syphilis? Sorry, do you mean syphilis miasm or syphilis the disease? Syphilis, the disease needs to be cured properly. It has to be treated properly. When it's either primary and secondary state, then it can be treated pretty well. When it has progressed to the tertiary, where it involves skin, and when it is deeper acting, then it's very difficult to treat. Then we'll have to just go by the symptoms. But there will be quite a degree of structural and irreversible changes, and the patient has to live with that. Please repeat the question. Okay, the question is, forgetfulness is a symptom which is present in our repertory. It is characteristic of soric individuals and syphilitic individuals. Now, how do you tell them both apart? How do you differentiate the two? Soric forgetfulness present for temporary events. Syphilis forgetfulness is for both past events as well as present. Wow. Yes, that's correct. I mean, that's one way of saying it. It's very good what you said. Can you say it in a more, with the cause also included? Like what is the cause behind their forgetfulness? Can you include that also? Well done. I mean, it's a very well answered question. What is the cause behind their forgetfulness? Memory is weak. Excellent. Very good. So that means there is a core deficiency or a core destruction where the intellect itself is not well developed. So the patient's grasping and the patient's perception itself is weak to start with. So they're not able to perceive, they're not able to register what is being taught to them, and therefore they're not able to remember. Whereas a soric is good, is intellectually very sound, all their mental faculties are sound, but then their energy levels are weak. So after a point, their attention starts drifting and they have sudden vanishing of thoughts. They'll come back. The next day, if you teach them the same thing, they will remember and they'll recall. But their, what do you call, their attention span or their capacity is not that much. So probably because of low energy or because of deficiencies, they're not able to remember, or they're not able to remember for too long. Correct. So syphilitic conditions, there is degeneration. So the intellect and higher functions are weak to start with, which is why they are forgetful. Very good. Good answers, all of you. Okay. Anything else? I think I've also more or less finished explaining whatever I needed to. So if you can compare all your remedies this way, if you can compare your miasms this way, if you can understand your patient's history in this way, look at the cause, look at the exposure, look at their experiences, then you'll be able to understand the reason for their miasms, what the reason behind their whatever diseases that they have. Another very good remedy, which is an anti-syphilitic, is Oromet. But if you take Mercurius and you take Oromet, they are two very, very opposite remedies, although they are anti-syphilitic, both of them. In fact, they are inimical to both to each other. Mercury is literally a poison. It's a slow poison. Over a long period of time, it keeps acting till finally one day you see destruction. You had no clue till yesterday. Today you're suddenly seeing destruction, and that is the effect of mercury. Aurum is it's a noble metal. It doesn't even act on the body. So how is it that suddenly one day it is showing syphilitic tendencies? So that is very interesting. We'll do aurum metallicum as a remedy once in materia medica and understand that. So two very contrasting remedies, but both with syphilitic backgrounds. Again, something that you can all read and understand. Mercurius is it's literally it's low, it's dirty, it is crooked, cunning, all the shortcuts, all the in Hindi we use the word chalu. So all the chalu methods Mercurius will use. Whereas Aurum is noble, Aurum is regal, Aurum is majestic, Aurum has power, Aurum has position. So see how contrasting they both are. Yeah. Ma'am, what are the symptoms of late stage syphilis? Late stage of syphilis, it progresses to the bones, it goes to the skin, there'll be rashes all over the skin, typical copper colored skin eruptions. So you can Google syphilis, the disease itself, and you need to read about it. Yes. So what else? Is that it? Any other questions? Any other doubts? Please don't confuse syphilis, the infective disease, with syphilis, the miasm. You have three diseases that correspond to three miasms. Don't confuse the disease with the miasm. Merck salt should be taken night only for better results. There's nothing like that. You can also have symptoms that flare up during the day. But sometimes they say don't give the remedies at night because the medicinal aggravation and the disease aggravation together can cause discomfort in the patient. So you probably want to give a little time for the drug to act before the patient's disease aggravation kicks in. So maybe if you can give Merxol a little earlier in the day, by the time it's night, the action would have started and the patient should probably feel better. Other syphilitic remedies include all the different mercurius remedies, Aurum-Met, Kali iode, Kali bike, Ferrum-Met. So these are all wonderful remedies. Read about them and try to compare. And I hope you all have understood how to differentiate between the three miasms. It's not only about the exam that you have to worry about. You should also use this to identify patients and their conditions in your clinics later on. All right. So if this is all, we can all wind up today's session. It was very good. And thank you for all the questions. And it was really helpful that Sujata gave us so many slides to read from. do stay in touch with all the three miasms. Don't try to study each one separately. Try to study them together so that you're able to understand the progress of a disease, progress of a patient's constitution. And that's the only way you will be able to select your remedy in the clinic. And for next week, we have not decided what topic to take. If you all have exams, if you all have to study, okay, last question. Is syphilis bacterial or viral? It is a bacterial disease. Bacteria called Treponema pallidum. Please Google syphilis itself. Syphilis, the sexually transmitted disease. There's a lot of information on it. It's not as prevalent today, like I said, because we have better medicines to treat it with and also better prevention. So sexual contact is not that, impure sexual contact is not that prevalent today, thankfully, because people are taking precautions. I'm talking 200 years ago, before the invention of modern medicine, that people used to not have better preventive measures in those days, which is why it was rampant. It spread that easily. Can you recommend a book where there is a list of remedies by miasms? Yes, I'll tell you. Let me just type the name of the book down. Give me a second. I'll just tell you the name of the book. I'm going to just give you the name of the book. So that's the link for the book. The book's name itself is The Principle and Art of Cure by Homeopathy by Dr. Herbert Roberts. It's one of my favorite books. It is one of the textbooks that we use to study in our college. And he writes very well on miasms and various other topics. The English is pretty simple. The language and the way he writes itself is quite easy to grasp. So if you can prepare your own notes and prepare your own your points after reading his notes, it's very useful. So he has given a list of remedies for each miasm in each chapter. So have a look, take some time out and read. Take a class on obesity. Oh dear. Why obesity? Why that specific topic? Name and link are not visible. Hold on, let me just type it again. There, is this visible? Yes, so take down that link and please do read Herbert Roberts. Buy the book. It's not an expensive book. It's not a very thick book either. It's a rather thin book, but what he writes is very, very helpful, very useful. Of all the textbooks, Herbert Roberts is the easiest for us all to read and understand. So next week, we haven't really decided on a topic. If anybody has any suggestions, something to do with homeopathic philosophy or something to do with organon. We've covered a lot of topics. A lot of people are asking to get rid of obesity. Obesity is a lifestyle change. It's not just one aspect, not only diet or exercise. It's an overall effort. So we can do that, but then we're all aiming to do topics on philosophy and organon. If you all are ready for it, if exams are around the corner, we can have a revision of questions and difficult topics, or we can have obstetrics and gynecology. But we're all focusing only on homeopathic topics. No? This is all medicine and this is all mainstream that you're talking about. We can have, susceptibility has already been covered. Again, the lecture will be available to you all. Can someone answer when your exams are due, when your exams are supposed to be held? We can plan the next topic based on that. I can have some suggestions and advice from you all also. Or we can have a general, question and answer session next week, just for a change. where you can have questions from different aspects of philosophy. November and December. Okay. So if you want, we can have a revision next week, just an open panel, or we can have another topic which we've not covered, or we can have comparison of all three miasms. But that has already been discussed in detail. I don't think we need to go back to miasms again and again. Or there's no hurry. We can decide it. We can let you all know what we can do. Susceptibility has been covered. Can you please guide me and my friends reference book for second year? Which subject? There are lots of subjects. So tell us which subject you want reference books for. Temperament. Temperament is interesting. Yes, we should do that actually. Temperament, diathesis, tendencies. Shall we do that? Evaluation and analysis of symptoms. That also has been kind of covered. Symptomatology, we've already done that as a topic. I think that's already available on the website. So just go onto the website and have a look. Okay. I don't think we can cover topics on gynec and obstetrics because we are trying to deal with homeopathy purely on this. Yeah, so let me just type the name of our website where you can find the previous lectures. Give me a second. So this is the website. Please refer to this for the past webinars. And whatever hasn't been updated will be updated soon. Please be patient and bear with us. We'll get everything ready. Everything has been recorded, so we'll get it on for you. Bacteriology and virology. Okay, all of you are asking me pathology and obstetrics and gynecology. It's a little difficult. Unless our student speakers are ready to present, let me have a word with our team and get back to you based on that. And just be patient with us. But next week, if people are ready, we can take something light like temperaments and we can discuss that. It's a short topic, but it's quite useful. So if you all are ready, let's do temperaments next Thursday. Next Wednesday, the topic is introduction and study in general of Schussler's tissue salts. So biochemic remedies, introduction and general explanation. So do join us and stay with us for that. Come with all your questions ready for me. After that, we can decide what remedy we can deal with. So next Wednesday, for sure, we are having tissue salts. And Thursday, if it's okay, we can do temperaments. I can confirm that later. So if that is all, let's wind up for tonight and let's, yeah, thank you so much. When are you going to conduct your next session? So next Wednesday, that is the 23rd of September, we're going to have a class on materia medica. That is, we're going to have introduction to the biochemical remedies, Schussler's 12 tissue salts. And I'm going to explain the general characteristic and uses of all these remedies. And on next Thursday, we have not confirmed it, but if everyone's okay, we can do temperament as a topic. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your feedback. It's very well appreciated.